Well, that was one hell of a 49ers practice. We saw Brock Purdy connect on two deep touchdowns again. We saw him throw a couple interceptions. We saw Jordan Mason start a fight, get into those details. And we saw the 49ers just in general be on the field for the longest stretch so far of training camp. And I think that might end up being the longest practice period of this July and August. Just when you thought it was going to end, they put 23 minutes up on the scoreboard. And that time ran as the 49ers executed a move the ball period to end practice. And it was a 2-minute drill move the ball period. So the pressure was on. And Brock Purdy finished his day with a beautiful back shoulder touchdown throw to Jawan Jennings. And then Kyle Shanahan, to make that first team work even more, said, okay, yeah, that was a touchdown, but I'm gonna line you guys up at like the 2 or the 3, and we're gonna run a few goal line plays. On the first goal line play, Jordan Mason delivered a touchdown. Now let's talk about Mason. This guy, he's gonna be at least running back 2B. Today in one-on-ones, he beat Ezekiel Turner, who's a new linebacker that the 49ers signed. Was with the Arizona Cardinals before, was a special teams ace for the Cardinals. But I watched the one-on-ones between the running backs and the tight ends and the running backs against the linebackers and the safeties. And Jordan Mason, we had wondered about his hands and his route running ability prior to this year, beats Turner clean off the release. And on the streak pattern, I think Brandon Allen or Tanner Mordecai threw the football. On the streak pattern, he makes a beautiful catch. I mean, just outstretched arms, lunges for the football, and the hands have not been a question for Jordan Mason over the course of this camp. But the saga of that play might not have ended there. I don't know if Jordan Mason said something to Ezekiel Turner after he made the touchdown catch in one-on-ones, because then during team drills, Mason caught a little out. He was matched up against Turner, and on the out pattern, Turner shoved him out of bounds. I didn't think that the hit was late. It might have been borderline, but Mason, after he picked himself up, while Turner was walking back to the huddle, Mason just went into a full sprint and shoved him. And it obviously started a big shoving match. Nobody threw a punch, which is good, because anybody throwing a punch with a helmet on is asking to break their hand. But it definitely was a chippy moment of practice, and I'm wondering if some bad blood carried over from when Mason beat Turner in one-on-ones. Later, Mason, who ran really well today, he caught a bunch of passes out of the backfield today, didn't drop a single catch. He was very featured. Later on, he even had some words for Malik Collins heading back to the huddle. And Malik Collins is a big guy, number 99, defensive tackle that the 49ers added with the trade with the Houston Texans this offseason. Anyway, Brock Purdy's deep passes. First, Deebo Samuel deep, probably a 50-yard gain. Not sure if it would have been a touchdown. They don't blow the plays dead, but they don't play all the way through to the end zone. So maybe Deebo would have scored, maybe it wouldn't. It was still a beautiful deep pass against Diamador Lenore with George Odom coming over for safety help. Brock Purdy's deep ball was on today, because then later he found Chris Conley behind the defense. Conley, I said it yesterday, this guy's going to make the 53-man roster. Between the gunner work in the Super Bowl and the stuff that he's doing as a true X wide receiver, if Brandon Ayuk for some reason is not on this team or not ready in week 1 for the 49ers, then Chris Conley might be the fill-in for the X receiver spot, just a pure X. He could block. Obviously, Ayuk does that really well. He has the rapport with Brock Purdy, which is extremely important in this situation. He brings special teams value as a gunner. And, today we saw a contested catch in another clutch situation where Purdy was throwing the ball on a crosser over the middle. And we've seen many of those already for Conley this camp. But the deep ball today, he just blew past the defense, and Brock Purdy dropped it in a bucket for the touchdown. Another deep pass today was completed by Josh Dobbs to Danny Gray, the speedster, who's having a decent camp. I mean, it's going to be a dogfight to make that roster at the receiver position. So guys like Danny Gray need to make as many plays, block as well as they can to have a shot to make that roster. But Josh Dobbs did hit Gray for the touchdown. Purdy's 2 interceptions. The first one was intended for Ricky Pearsall. Purdy held onto the ball looking for somebody to get open. People weren't getting open. And Pearsall might have had a slight sliver as he was cutting across the field from left to right, about 15 yards downfield. So Purdy decided to uncork one had a small window, and it was just a little bit too high. It glanced off of Ricky Pearsall's fingers and into the hands of Jair Brown, the 49ers' second-year safety. A little bit later, Purdy, this one was not off of anybody's fingertips. I think he was trying to go for Deebo Samuel on the intermediate route, and it was undercut by Jair Brown. So Jair, 2 interceptions. The 49ers actually have 17 picks already in training camp. Not all off of Brock Purdy, of course. There have been multiple quarterbacks delivering for San Francisco, but today Purdy threw 2. I have to reiterate, it's not a big deal. I thought, especially with the first pick to Pearsall, was Purdy trying to test the limits, which is what you do in practice. You want to find the limits, and then you want to, once you define them, you want to be in position to avoid crossing them during the regular season. I will say that Purdy's interception rate was probably his weakness. It wasn't egregious last season, but he did rank in the bottom half of the league. He was still the most efficient quarterback in all of football by a mile. I mean, it was a historically efficient season, even with an interception rate that was probably a little bit higher than you want it to be. So, of course, Brock Purdy wants to lower it a little bit, and he's working on finding those limits at practice as we speak. Devondre Campbell, linebacker, one of Jordan Mason's runs later. I mean, I thought Jordan Mason was running like a man possessed today. It's looking really good. Beat Devondre Campbell to the outside. We're going to keep a close eye on Devondre to see if he's going to, A, win that linebacker 2 spot, and B, hold on to it. Because we've seen D. Winters matching up with Christian McCaffrey. By the way, Christian got D back today in one-on-ones after D. Winters had that win a couple days ago. But obviously D. Winters, Jalen Graham, those guys are competing to try to move up the pecking order to that 2 spot while Dre Greenlaw's out. Devondre Campbell, there have been plays where I thought his speed has been impressive. He blanketed Christian McCaffrey on that play I talked about last week, and plays where I think it could have been a little bit better. Today, he let Mason get the edge against him. A little bit later in practice, Ronaldo Green had a nice physical pass breakup against Ronald Darby, who is actually Brandon Ayuk and Ricky Pearsall's former teammate at ASU, is a depth addition at receiver for the 49ers. So that was practice today, the longest session of the year. And I will say there's one more really nice diving catch to end. It was Braden Willis from Brandon Allen. And I think the 49ers will take 4 tight ends, as they usually do. I think Willis is one of those 4. Obviously, George Kittle. Eric Saubert, who's been working with the first team, seems to be entrenched in tight end 2 spot because of his ability to block. And he's also made some nice catches, including the first in team drills of this training camp. But Braden Willis on a deeper out pattern made a really nice diving catch, and that was during that very competitive move the ball period. So I think Willis is number 3, and then you look at Logan Thomas. You look at Cam Latu, who was out of practice today, by the way. I saw him on the sideline. I don't know why he didn't practice. We'll find out a little bit later, but we'll see how the 49ers tight end room shakes out. All right, what a competitive practice, back and forth. Offense and defense both made plays. Great day of work here from Levi Stadium. That's your instant reaction. We will talk to you very soon with some more in-depth analysis.